Listen, everybody, I have been reviewing this book written by a philosopher who certainly makes me ponder the complexities of the human experience. His name is David Lahm, and he wrote this children's book titled In the Beginning, God Smiled. I enjoyed this because it uses poetic, down-to-earth language to introduce children to God and the scientific topic of the Big Bang. And today I'm going to dive into three particular things from the book that you must know. Welcome to the Common Caveat podcast. My name is Matthew Sabatine, and I'm here to help you navigate the crossroads of the Christian faith, science, and the human experience. Without further ado, let's begin. Number one is that first moment of God's creation in which David writes, "He pinched an unspecified handful of glee. He grabbed giggles, love, and charity. He bottled the songs he had sung in his joy and sought all of his genius now to deploy. He pushed and he smushed these things to one spot and single-handedly squished them all into a dot, one particularly teensy, hot little dot. God cleared his throat and said with a boom, 'Let there be fireworks and let there be room.'" This parallels the Big Bang model that says 13 billion years ago, the universe's initial contents were concentrated within a highly compact and bafflingly hot point before exponentially expanding outward. This inflationary period that lasted for a fraction of a second was led by vacuums in empty space that were actually filled with fluctuating quantum fields and dark energy. This involved negative pressure that was forceful enough to repel space itself and stretch it out. What is amazing to me are the seconds that transpired after the initial bang. That was 10 to the negative 36 seconds. That is a number with 36 zeros after it, which is faster than the blink of an eye. Within that time, the seeds were sown for large-scale objects to emerge from the subatomic-sized regions of space that are too small for the naked eye. Then everything slowed down, but continued expanding to the eventual presence of quarks, electrons, photons, neutrinos, gravity, and electromagnetism. Everything cooled down, but to a temperature that was still much hotter than the sun we have today. The baffling speed of that instant in which the Big Bang came and went reminds me of the speed and suddenness in God's actions during eschatological events, as described by 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 50 through 54, that says, "God will raise the dead and change our perishable bodies into imperishable spiritual bodies in a flash, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet." Although this passage has nothing directly relevant to the Big Bang and the universe's beginnings, it still paints a picture of God acting at unfathomable speed. Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 3 says, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters." The formless emptiness and darkness covering the deep is poetic language meant to be digestible to human minds that can't literally see the quarks, electrons, photons, and neutrinos comprising the universe throughout the very long time frame following after the Big Bang. Those unfathomably small particles are not detectable to our eyes as they briefly emerge and annihilate each other, leaving their impact only indirectly observable according to the Casimir effect and Hawking radiation. So, the question is, what is the best way to communicate such incomprehensible creative speed to finite human minds? The answer is poetry. The gargantuan release of energy during the Big Bang, followed by the emergence of light and matter, is captured by Lahm's metaphorical description of God as saying, quote, "Let there be fireworks and let there be room. The dot, it exploded, it blossomed, it burst," end quote. Lahm's mention of dispersing fireworks with all colors, hues, types, and styles evokes a mental image of the electromagnetic spectrum involving things such as gamma rays and visible light, in addition to the stars and galaxies that would have various colors forming later in evolution. Now we go on to number 2, the creation of Adam and Eve. Lahm describes God as wanting more cheerful spectators of his glory by saying, "I know just what I'll do," said God to his fans. "I'll use the firework dust to make woman and man." This obviously parallels Genesis chapter 2, verses 7 and 18 through 24, in which God forms Adam from the dust of the ground and breathes life into him before making Eve from his rib. Furthermore, it parallels the idea that humans and all life are traceable to stardust. The carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur that are crucial to earthly life have also been found by astronomers in a survey of 150,000 stars. This was accomplished with stellar measurements from a spectrograph at the Apache Point Observatory located in New Mexico. Humans endlessly ponder these questions. Who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? And how should I spend my time? Among other many questions. David Lahm encourages us to marvel at the twinkling and burning beauty of the objects in the sky. The awe we feel is how we intuit our cosmic purpose for being here and how we intuit God's love in his creation. David Lahm says, quote, "Your whispered prayers beneath the blankets at night, your little voice as you sing with delight, your clapping hands in genuine praise paint the last stroke in the artwork he's made. God has always been happy, he's forever been glad, and he'll ever be sharing the pleasure he has. In eternity smiling, etched the lines in his eyes, and his joy is yours when you look to the skies." This could parallel Carl Sagan's idea that, quote, "We are a way for the universe to know itself," end quote. Such poetry expresses our place in the cosmos. Our awe provokes reflection on the meaning of creation and makes us realize the grand narrative at play. Although Sagan was an atheist, and atheists would like to interpret his idea without spirituality, his statement implies we are naturally inclined to embark on an existential quest, something I find to be spiritual instead of just particles bumping into each other in a void. Since I'm not an astronaut, I imagine that travels through space feel somewhat akin to a spiritual experience, especially in light of what David Lahm says, quote, "As we sail through the cosmos on gravity's waves, twirling, whirling, and hurtling through space, through the darkness careening, we find purpose and meaning, and worship believing we look to his face," end quote. And so now we go on to number 3, tragedy, pain, and suffering. The darkness and tragedies of this world are like dark matter and dark energy. We don't understand it all, and we therefore lean on an all-powerful God who does, even as we use instruments to probe every facet of material existence. This forces me back to Job chapter 38, verses 4 and 7, that is quoted in the beginning of Lahm's book, saying, "Were you there when I made the world?" Speaking out of a storm, those are God's words to Job, who is questioning God's goodness after the demise of his family and the loss of his property. For Americans, God's words may convey sarcasm and discomfort if we literally imagine a voice ominously and maniacally laughing at our pain. Instead, what if we imagine God's sarcasm directed at our arrogant fears that try to convince us that our misfortune is proof that God is absent and negligent? David Lahm shows a picture of a child with a heart of praise for God while gazing with awe at the stars. This could parallel Matthew chapter 18, verses 2 through 4, in which Jesus urges his disciples to have humility and dependence, similar to how a child trusts in a parent. Trust and worship for God is vital in troublesome times, as the character of Job can probably attest. Job's losses and lamentations seem to reflect the self-doubt and cosmic questions that most humans endure in troublesome times. We always question, where did I go wrong to earn this? Still, Job chapter 28 concludes that wisdom is found in fearing the Lord. This is part of the Christian faith that is not passive, but instead wrestles. It wrestles with perseverance under trial and commitment to God, even when the blessings are absent. It wrestles with the incomprehensibility of God's ways, the uncertainties of life, test the strength of our faith, and reveal to us how we can worship God better by being like a child trusting a parent. We must look at the beautiful stars and trust in God to have complete control, in spite of how the stars will exhaust their fuel, die out, and lead to black holes and a heat death of the universe, theoretically speaking. But we continue trusting him as he knows the beginning and the ending, with plans to not harm us, but instead to make us prosper. Thank you for stopping by today. Please hit the subscribe button, hit that bell, hit the like button. I will see you next time.